All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Lars. I'm here with On the Fringes of Sound, and today we are talking to Eric McLean. You probably know him better as the Broken Cradle. How you doing there, Eric?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on today.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for joining us. So, wanted to talk about a few things. First of all, you got a new album coming out on December
Yeah,
7th called Postmortal. Is there anything you can tell us about this album?
sure. Yeah, so this album's a little bit different than some of my previous releases. I think it still has my same sound, but it's leans a little bit more experimental, a little bit more ambient than before. I think my previous works have been a little bit more piano centered. Um, this still has some of that, but it certainly drifts a little bit further into more experimental territory. But yeah, it's a full length 10 songs. Excited to release it here in the next few weeks. Feels like I finished it months ago, but it's the whole
Yeah,
getting it ready for Spotify and Bandcamp and all that, marketing and all that stuff. It's like that's the other 50% of the job. So
yeah, that's the fun 50%, right?
yeah, yeah, right.
So, as far as this album, would you say it diverges from your previous kind of themes? Like, I remember some of your previous work, like Gilead and You Are Here and I Am With You. It was they're very emotional pieces to me. Like, would you say that this differentiates from that, or would you say it's just kind of a continuation of the same theme?
Yeah, I mean it's different. So I'll tell you where the idea came from, and I was sitting. I remember sitting in the backyard, and I was watching my kids. I have three kids. They're 7, 5, and 2, and I was watching them play, and I had this moment of realizing like I wasn't always going to be here for them, and that they're getting older. And it wasn't really a sad feeling, just more of nostalgia and just realizing life is, time is marching forward regardless of what I want. And I started thinking about that. I mean, my parents are still around, my wife's parents are still around, but I started thinking about, well, what comes after? I think that's a question most people have asked at some point in their life. And and that's where the idea of this album came from. So it is, somewhat inspired by my kids and by my family, but um, it's just meant to explore some themes of afterlife and in no particular religious way, just a little bit of everything. Whether that's Christianity or Buddhism or Judaism or whatever. It's all in there and influences the album.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So,
so a little bit different from the other albums, but still similar, I think.
I gotcha. So while we're talking about that, your family had, from what I can tell, your family's a big inspiration for your music.
Yeah.
So are they actively involved in creating it or anything, or do they listen to it?
Uh, I gave my wife a hard time because she really doesn't listen to my music, and I don't mean that like she's not supportive. She is very supportive of me making music, and we talk about. I mean, the gear starts adding up, and I'm starting to build a Euro rack, system, which is not cheap.
Hmm.
So having her blessing to to be
I'm
able to do
sure.
that is support enough for me. Uh,
I'm sure she was thrilled when you said, "Honey, I would like to spend several $1,000s on building a Euro rack."
yeah, I call I joke and say she's my financial manager, but she kind of is, and is very very wise in how we spend our money. So um, I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, but having a business plan for like, here's the system I want, here's how much it's going to cost, planning it all out. But she's very supportive. She just is not into, ambient and experimental music. I mean, I think she likes it more if I'm just playing the piano. Uh, and, my kids, I think it's cool when my daughter, my oldest, she'll ask, is this, when I'm playing stuff in the car, she's like, is this your song? And usually it's not, but it's kind of cool that she's thinking about that. Like, oh, you write music and people listen to music. Um, So they're not directly involved in making the music, but certainly a big part of the inspiration for what I do. And it's kind of hard not to be the inspiration because it's that is my life, right? Is I work and then have my family, and then music's
Yeah.
just right after that.
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
So what got you started in music? Is the Broken Cradle your first musical project, or was there something before this?
Um, yeah. So I've been playing piano at least since I was 7 or 8. And then after that, I started taking drum lessons, and I played in a bunch of bands in high school, um, mostly like rock and hardcore screaming music, and I played the drums and all of those, which is nothing like what I write now. Uh, so that's kind of where I originally went, and then after high school, um, had kind of a duo with a friend of mine, and we were called the Broken Cradle, and this is probably 14 or 15 years ago. And I left and went to school and did some other things. And when I got back, he, the inspiration for the Broken Cradle for me was him, and he had some mental health struggles, and I wanted to carry that name forward in my music. So that's where I'm at now. And really the pandemic, like a lot of people, gave me a little bit of extra time to be at home. I mean, you can see around. This is my guest bedroom slash office slash music studio. So this is where,
Multi-purpose room.
yeah, and I'll take what I can get. With 3 kids and limited space, but it's this is the project I've mostly been working on, and hadn't played music for a few years, really, just because I'd been in school and in grad school and moving around, living in apartments. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard when you're lit, when you're doing that and you don't have any money anyway. But it's a little bit more settled now, and able to make music again.
Yeah, it's amazing what just a little bit of disposable income can do, right?
Yeah, it is nice.
So, talking about your project, so what is exactly your process for writing a new album or piece of music? Do you start with a specific scene in mind, or do you just kind of free form until you come up with something?
A little bit of both. I think for me, and you can see my piano here right beside me. Usually, I'll open up. I use Studio One, so I'll open up Studio One, load up the piano in there, and just start playing. See what happens. Basically to jot down ideas. And I would say to anybody, if you're if you're experiencing writer's block, don't worry about it. Just open up, start playing notes, hit the record button, and record everything. That's usually how I start. This album was a little bit different in that I started, instead of the piano, I opened up more like soft synths and things like that, and started experimenting more with like kind of walls of sound and different textures and things like that. And I would just try to capture a feeling. And so like this album in particular, when I had the idea, this one I actually had like the song titles listed out before I had really written the songs. And I had these ideas, and then I just started writing and trying to see what fits with those song titles. So for me, that was a little bit backwards from how I usually work, but I tried to be a little bit more, I don't know, change the workflow a little bit and see what would happen. But yeah, usually it's just open up your DAW and start, making some sounds and see what happens. And sometimes it works, but 9 out of 10 times you throw it away and you just keep going.
I totally understand that, especially
Yeah.
when your hard drive just starts filling up with so many projects that you started one little bar on, and then you just kind of, I'm done with this.
Well, and I don't know how other people work, but I need to get better at being a little bit more organized, because I'll open up Studio One and it's just a list of dates from like, these projects I've started. And so then when I have like, 15, 20, 25 dates, and I'm like, all right, I should start going through these and listening back to them and see what they sound like. And if I like it, I keep it. If I don't, I delete it and just keep kind of moving forward through it. kind of iteratively and seeing what
Yeah.
sticks.
Yeah, at least you delete it. I mean, I personally, I'm bad at deleting them.
I, yeah.
I have a hard drive, like a whole folder just full of nothing but projects I never did anything with. So good
Well,
on you for.
well, for me, it's partly music and partly like video games, right? And so I start seeing these hard drives where they're like, it's like a terabyte. I start seeing that thing fill up, and I'm just like, I really
Mm,
gotta, I gotta do something about this. So yeah, it's a little bit out of being forced to do it.
okay. So while we're talking about your process and everything, so what does your production setup look like exactly? Do you have any particular gear or plugins or software that you like to use?
Yeah, so I live mostly in the box. I don't really have the piano sitting here is a Roland FP30, which I love. It's got weighted
Mm,
keys, so it feels very um, for a piano player like myself. That's really important to me since I don't
right.
have a piano in here. Um, so I use that a lot and have some controllers and other things. Currently building Eurorack modular system, which I'm sure I'll once I wrap my mind around it, I'll figure out a way to work that in to my
And the
music.
wallet.
Yeah, yeah. So that'll probably come later, but when I get into Studio One, one of my favorite plugins is the Nor piano, the Niels Fromm Nor piano through Contact, and
Oh,
it's his sampled piano, and I mean you get just every detail. I mean down to the clicks and the hammers, hitting the felt and um, all sorts of cool things, and you can use it as a sound design tool. There's a lot of cool things in there to really manipulate it. I think as far as piano VSTs go, I think it's the best. And then on top of that, you can do a bunch of other weird stuff with it and manipulate sounds and change it up. So that's one of my favorites. Um, some of the other ones I use the Olafur Arnold Stratus, which is I don't know if you know the story, but he years ago hurt his hand and was worried he was going to have like permanent nerve damage,
oh,
and started basically programming how can I play the piano like it sounds like I have two hands, but it's one hand. And he came up with this thing called Stratus, which essentially you can hit a chord and it'll start kind of self modulating and doing other sorts of things. Really, really
oh,
interesting. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you should, because it's got the piano and then other kind of synth sounds in there too. But it is, one, it sounds great, and two, it is just like an instant kind of creativity booster for getting some really cool sounds out of it. So those are the two I would say piano type plugins that I use, and then um, some of my other favorites. I use the Vital synth. I think it's Matt Titel did that, and it's free. It's really intuitive to use. I use it for making a lot of pad sounds and more textured kind of things.
okay.
Arteria Pigments is a good one too. Yeah, it's I bought that last year, and I just love it because you've got wavetable, you've got analog, you've got kind of granular stuff. I mean, it really does everything within the walls of Pigments. Um, so, and I even figured out you can use the sequencer in Pigments to sequence like other instruments too, which is kind of neat because I think the sequencer is actually pretty underrated aspect of the Pigments
Oh, okay.
software. Yeah. So those are some of the things I use. As far as I use Ozone for like the mixing mastering stuff too, because it's just I don't use the AI stuff, but it is certainly the way my brain thinks a little bit more linearly. It helps me to kind of work that way using the Ozone.
Right.
It's all in the box.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Ozone's a good plugin. So, and if
you
you just
know,
need to make it loud.
yeah, I mean, I work on getting it loud enough, and I don't profess to be good at mixing and mastering, but I think I've gotten better, and it's kind of for me, it's a challenge to work through. And learn about sound frequencies and, what sits right and what doesn't and all that stuff. So,
The other fun part of the job.
yeah, man, I didn't realize really until I started mixing my own stuff, how much, the audio science that goes into it and sounds. And it's just my respect for audio engineers is profound, because I don't think it's easy to master.
It's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Uh, so what do you have planned for the future of the Broken Cradle right now? Are we looking at any maybe physical releases in the future, or possibly working with any labels out there?
Yeah, I would love to do physical copies, but I'm sure, as most independent artists, I think to myself, is anybody going to buy, if I make cassette tapes or CDs? I always have in the back of my mind, is anybody going to buy this stuff from me? Which is, maybe that's just something I need to work through, but it's always a little bit scary to put yourself out there like that. I would
Yeah.
like to do that in the future, though. And I think it's cool. I've got some off screen here, some cassettes that I've been collecting, which is cool. It's kind of weird, but it's cool going back to like these physical releases. And
Oh yeah.
I didn't at first I thought it was I was like, why are we doing this? But I don't know. There is something nice about having physical copies, and having something physical to say, I own this. And
Right.
I can listen to this anytime I want.
I think
So
there
I
was
would,
something. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just, I think it would be really, I'm a big movie buff. When I was like 18, I worked at a Hollywood Video. And so I still
Oh
have,
wow.
I have a, yeah, rest in peace, Hollywood Video. Um, yeah, I still have this case like full of movies, and it's kind of cool to have that stuff, but my kids have no clue, like, physical copies of media, like, what is that?
A CD?
Yeah,
What?
yeah, it's weird. Same thing with like commercials, right? They're like,
Oh yeah.
can we fast forward through the commercials? And I'm like, no, not if it's off streaming.
Wait, there's movies not on streaming? What?
I mean, they have no idea what
I know.
it was like. But, yeah, it does make me feel a little bit older. But yeah, I would love to do a physical release, and I've had one or two smaller, kind of indie record labels ask, if I'd like to do that. But, I think it's just weighing the pros and the cons to, is it worth it? What do I get out of it that I don't already get? And how do I reach a wider audience, which I think is a question everybody has when they're sharing their music. So
Of
I think it's
course.
just, waiting for the right opportunity, and, making sure I have the time and energy to commit to something like that, because it does feel a little bit more formal when you release
Yeah.
through a label.
Yeah, there's definitely lead time on them. I've done it through a couple now, and I think the average lead time is about 4 months. Although I've been talking to some
Yeah.
labels and they're like, oh, you need to submit it at least 6 months out. It's like, yikes.
How crazy is that? We've gotten to this weird state. By the way, the website you do, I mean, it's really great. And I've been following it kind of since its inception. But it's so crazy when you send out your stuff for review, for instance, and they're like, if you don't send this to us 3 months in advance, like, we likely will never get to it. And it's just I mean, I know you know this, the volume of stuff that people send and want you to review. It's a lot. And I'm sure it's the same with record labels. Like, it's a business, and planning out the releases and having the time and money to be able to do the things that need to be done for marketing or whatever else. I mean, it's a lot. So I think, for me to answer your question, would have to be the right label, the right time. Kind of, it would all need to fit. And with Postmortal, I finished it probably 3 or 4 months ago, and trying to get used to that kind of cycle of finish it,
And
leave
then
enough
wait.
time to try to, yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, what? I don't even. It sounds kind of funny, but I haven't listened to it for like 2 months now, because I finished it. I'm sending it out, and I'm like, when you get to the end of your album, for me, I'm like, I don't want to listen to this for a few months,
Right.
because I've been listening to it nonstop, trying to mix it and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah,
I know
cool
what you
shit.
mean. It's one of those things like we were talking about, does your family listen to your music or anything? The way I look at it is like my wife does end up listening to my music. She doesn't set out to, but she'll listen to the same little segment of music over and over again as I'm sitting there working on it. It's like, no, I'm listening to it over and over again because it just doesn't sound quite right. Don't you hear that?
Like,
No.
what is that awful sound? And I'm like, that's a beautiful sound, first of all. Second of all, something, it's not sitting right. The frequency's wrong.
Thanks for your support, honey. Appreciate it.
Oh man, that's true.
Oh man. Well, Eric, thanks a lot for sitting down with us. I'm looking forward to hearing your new album. We've already heard a couple of the songs off of it. I know you've got the preview up, and I've listened to what's available so far. I really like it. I'm looking forward to hearing the rest.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to interview me and have me on.
Oh, not a problem. Talk to you later, Eric.
Okay, see ya.